A man lies down in open country with a stone under his head for a pillow. And while he sleeps, the sky opens above him. A foreign king wakes at dawn shaking. He calls his whole court together and tells them that God has just called him a dead man. An enemy soldier, the night before a battle, describes a loaf of barley bread rolling downhill into camp. Within hours, his army no longer exists. None of these men were awake. Every one of them was asleep, and we tend to treat all of it as background color, a quaint delivery service from an older world. But line them all up, in the order the text tells them, and something appears that no single famous story can show you. There is a shape. The dreams arrive in matched pairs. Somebody almost always has to interpret them, and they land, overwhelmingly, on the wrong people. So, this is every dream in the Bible. Not the visions, not the trances, the dreams the text itself calls dreams. 21 of them, in canonical order, from a Philistine king in Genesis to a Roman governor's wife at the trial of Jesus. And here is what the count reveals, which no single famous dream ever does. More of them are given to outsiders than to insiders, pagans, foreigners, a palace baker, an enemy soldier, a Babylonian emperor, twice. The covenant people are the minority in their own book. There is a second surprise waiting, and it is stranger. Scripture is far more nervous about dreams than we are. It has a law about dreamers. It has a prophet who compares them to straw. We will get to both, and not at the end. First, the rule I am using, so you can check the list yourself. A dream counts here if the text calls it a dream. That is the whole test. The Hebrew word shalom, or in the Greek of the New Testament, onar. Nothing looser than that. It costs us some famous scenes. Abram falls into a deep sleep and a dreadful darkness in Genesis 15. The text never says dream. Out. God speaks to Jacob on the road to Egypt in what Genesis calls visions of the night. Same darkness, same sleep, different word. Out. So are Paul's night encounters in Acts. But the line is not tidy, and the text knows it. Daniel chapter 7 opens by calling one night both a dream and visions of his head. Job pairs them too. In a dream, in a vision of the night, when deep sleep falls on men. A dream is a vision you have asleep. So we begin. And the first dream in the Bible does not belong to Jacob, or to Joseph, or to anyone who worships Israel's God. Genesis 20. Abraham has walked into Gerar and told his half-truth about Sarah again. She is my sister. King Abimelech has taken her into his house. That night, God came to Abimelech in a dream and said, "Behold, you are a dead man, because of the woman you have taken. She is a man's wife." And then, something happens that happens nowhere else. The man argues back. Inside the dream, "Lord," he says, "will you kill an innocent people?" And God concedes the point, still inside the dream. "Yes, I know you did this with integrity. It was I who kept you from touching her." Then the instruction. "Return the man's wife, because he is a prophet, and he will pray for you and you shall live," which is remarkable in a way almost nobody notices. That verse is the first time the Hebrew Bible uses the word prophet at all. It is spoken inside a dream by God to a pagan king about a man who has just deceived him. The pattern starts here and never really stops. Genesis 28. Jacob has stolen his brother's blessing and is running for his life, alone, on the road north to Haran. The sun sets. He takes one of the stones of that place, puts it under his head, and lies down. And he dreamed. A ladder set up on the earth, and the top of it reaching to heaven, and the angels of God ascending and descending on it. Though ladder is a soft translation, the Hebrew word is sulam. It appears exactly once in the entire Hebrew Bible, and it suggests something built. A ramp, a stairway. and the Lord stood above it and made a promise. This land, offspring like the dust of the earth, and I am with you wherever you go. Jacob wakes terrified. Surely the Lord is in this place, he says, and I did not know it. This is the gate of heaven. Notice what nobody does. Nobody interprets it. God spoke plainly, so there was nothing to decode. Hold on to that, because it becomes a rule. 20 years later, Jacob has a second dream, and almost nobody has heard of it. It is about livestock. Genesis 31. In the breeding season, he says, I lifted my eyes and saw in a dream that the goats mating with the flock were striped, spotted, and mottled. Then the angel of God speaks. I have seen all that Laban is doing to you. I am the God of Bethel. Now arise and go home. Laban chases him across the hill country with his armed household, gaining ground the whole way. And then God gets there first. God came to Laban the Aramean in a dream by night and said, Be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad. That is the entire dream. One sentence, delivered to the man the story treats as the antagonist, and it is why nobody dies on that mountain. So stop and count. 4 dreams so far, 2 to Jacob, who is inside the promise, 2 to men entirely outside it. And look at what the outsider's dreams are for. Neither one recruits anybody. Both are restraints. God is not calling Abimelech or Laban, he is stopping them. Run that forward through the whole list, and the proportion holds. Of the 21 dreams, 11 land on people outside Israel and only 10 inside. The outsiders have the majority. A Philistine king, an Aramean, 2 Egyptian palace officials, a Pharaoh twice over, a Midianite soldier, a Babylonian emperor twice, foreign stargazers, and a Roman governor's wife. Which means dreams, in Scripture, are not an insider's privilege. They are the channel God uses on people who have no other channel. And that raises the question almost nobody asks about this topic. If God hands them out that freely, why is the Bible so guarded about them? Because it is. Markedly. Deuteronomy 13. If a prophet or a dreamer of dreams arises among you and gives you a sign or a wonder, and here is the sting. Suppose the sign actually comes to pass, and then he says, Let us go after other gods. You shall not listen to him. Read that slowly. The prediction works. The dream is accurate, and the dreamer is still condemned, because accuracy was never the test. Loyalty was. Jeremiah is blunter. I have heard what the prophets say who prophesy lies in my name, saying, I have dreamed, I have dreamed. Let the prophet who has a dream tell the dream, he says. But let him who has my word speak my word faithfully. What has straw in common with wheat? That is the ranking. The dream is straw, the word is wheat. Both are real. Only one feeds you. Numbers 12 is calmer and ranks them the same way. God says he makes himself known to a prophet in a vision and speaks to him in a dream. But not so with Moses. With him I speak mouth to mouth, clearly, and not in riddles. Dreams are explicitly the lower setting. Ecclesiastes shrubs at them. When dreams increase and words grow many, there is vanity. Zechariah says the diviners tell false dreams and give empty comfort. And when Saul is desperate before his last battle, the measure of his abandonment is that the Lord answered him neither by dreams, nor by Urim, nor by prophets. Dreams sit in that list as one legitimate channel among 3. Legitimate, rationed, and never once something a person in Scripture asks for. Which brings us to the man whose entire life is built out of them. Genesis 37. Joseph is 17. The favorite son, and he has a dream he cannot keep to himself. We were binding sheaves in the field, he says, and my sheaf rose and stood upright, and your sheaves gathered round and bowed down to mine. His brothers do not need an interpreter. "Are you indeed to reign over us?" they ask, and they hated him even more. Then he dreams again. This time, the sun, the moon, and 11 stars are bowing down to him, and he tells that one as well. But the pair is there again. 2 dreams, different images, one meaning. His brothers call him the dreamer and plan to see what becomes of his dreams. Years later, sold, enslaved, and imprisoned, Joseph is put in charge of 2 disgraced officials of the Egyptian court. And one night they both dreamed. The cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt, each his own dream, and each dream with its own interpretation. In the morning, Joseph finds them downcast. "Why are your faces so low?" they tell him. "We have had dreams, and there is no one to interpret them." And Joseph answers with the line that turns out to be the thesis of this whole subject. Do not interpretations belong to God? Not a technique, not a manual, not a gift he owns. He says the meaning is God's property and then asks them to tell him anyway. The cupbearer goes first. "There was a vine before me with 3 branches. It budded, its blossoms shot out, and the clusters ripened into grapes." Joseph reads it immediately. The 3 branches are 3 days. In that time, Pharaoh will lift up your head and give you your office back. The baker likes what he hears and offers his own. Cake baskets stacked on his head, and in the top one, all sorts of baked food for Pharaoh. But birds were eating it out of the basket on his head. Joseph gives the same arithmetic. Each basket is a day, and in that time, Pharaoh will lift up your head as well, off you, and hang you on a tree, and the birds will eat your flesh. The same phrase, lift up your head, means promotion for one man and execution for the other. It happens exactly as he says. Then Pharaoh dreams. He is standing by the Nile, and out of the river come cows, sleek and fat, and they graze in the reed grass. Behind them come other cows, gaunt and ugly, that climb the bank and stand beside them. And the gaunt ones eat the fat ones. He wakes. He sleeps again and dreams a second time. Ears of grain, plump and good, all growing on a single stalk. Then thin ears, blighted by the east wind, sprout up after them and swallow the good ones whole. He wakes and knows it was a dream. In the morning his spirit is troubled. He calls every magician and wise man in Egypt, a trained class with libraries and centuries of cataloged dream lore. Not one of them can read it. Then the cupbearer, restored to the palace 2 years earlier and silent ever since, finally remembers the Hebrew in the dungeon. Joseph is shaved, dressed, and brought up before the throne. And Pharaoh says, "I have heard that when you hear a dream you can interpret it." Joseph's answer is the second half of the thesis. It is not in me. God will give Pharaoh a favorable answer. Then the reading. The 2 dreams are one dream. Fat cows and full ears stand for the same span of plenty, told twice over. 7 of each, and therefore 7 years. Then the starved cows and the blighted ears, and therefore a famine severe enough to erase the memory of the good years. And then the line that explains the whole pattern we have been watching. The doubling of Pharaoh's dream means the thing is fixed by God. That is why they come in pairs. 2 for Joseph, 2 for the officials, 2 for Pharaoh, and later 2 for Nebuchadnezzar. Repetition is not decoration, it is closure. Now jump forward to a hillside in Judges, and a dream so small it barely gets 3 verses. Gideon's army has been cut down to a token force, and he is terrified. God tells him to creep down to the enemy outposts and listen. He arrives just in time to hear a Midianite telling his comrade what he saw in the night. A cake of barley bread tumbled into the camp, came to the tent, struck it so that it fell, and turned it upside down, and the tent lay flat. And his friend answers without hesitating, "This is nothing other than the sword of Gideon. God has given Midian into his hand." Barley was the poor man's grain. a stale loaf rolling downhill into an army with camels beyond counting. The enemy interprets his own defeat correctly, and Gideon worships in the dark. The next dream belongs to a king, and it arrives as a blank check. Solomon has gone up to Gibeon to sacrifice. And at Gibeon the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream by night, and God said, "Ask what I shall give you." He could have said anything. He asks for an understanding mind to govern this people, and the ability to discern between good and evil. It pleased the Lord that Solomon had asked this. So God gives him the wisdom, and adds the riches and the honor he did not ask for. And Solomon awoke, and behold, it was a dream. That last clause matters. The narrator makes sure you know where the conversation happened. Here is a detail worth having. When Chronicles retells that same night, it drops the word dream entirely. God simply appeared to Solomon. The later writer was less comfortable with the setting. Then, the exile, and the two dreams that made a Babylonian emperor the most consequential dreamer in Scripture. In the second year of his reign, Nebuchadnezzar had dreams. His spirit was troubled, and his sleep left him. So he summoned the experts, and made an impossible demand. He would not tell them what he had seen. They were to produce the dream and its meaning, both, or be torn, limb from limb. Daniel asks for time, prays, and comes back. And his opening words are Joseph's words in another language, centuries later. No wise men, enchanters, magicians, or astrologers can show the king this mystery. But there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries. 2 men, 2 empires, 2 eras, and the same claim. Interpretation is not a skill anyone owns. It is disclosed, or it is not. Then the dream itself. A great image, mighty, of exceeding brightness, standing before him, and its appearance was frightening. Its head was fine gold. Its chest and arms were silver. Its middle and thighs were bronze. Its legs were iron, and its feet were partly iron and partly baked clay. A stone is cut out by no human hand. It strikes the feet, and the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, and the gold shatter together. And the stone becomes a mountain that fills the whole earth. Daniel tells him plainly, "You are the head of gold." Kingdoms follow, each named by its metal, and the last is divided, part strong and part brittle, iron that will not bind to clay. And in the days of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that shall never be destroyed. The dream is certain, Daniel says. The second imperial dream comes years later, and the king writes this one up himself in the first person. "I was at ease in my house and prospering in my palace," he says, "and I saw a dream that made me afraid. He saw a tree in the middle of the earth, and its height was great. It grew and became strong, and its top reached to heaven. It could be seen to the end of all the earth. Its leaves were fair, its fruit abundant. The beasts of the field sheltered in its shade, and the birds of the air nested in its branches." Then a watcher, a holy one, came down from heaven and cried aloud, "Hew down the tree, cut off its branches, strip its leaves, scatter its fruit, but leave the stump of its roots in the earth, bound with a band of iron and bronze, in the tender grass, wet with the dew of heaven. Let his heart be changed from a man's, and a beast's heart be given to him, and let 7 times pass over him." The text never says what a time is. Daniel, appalled, tells him the tree is the king and begs him to break off his sins. A year later it happens. And then the pattern inverts. In the first year of Belshazzar, Daniel, the great interpreter, has a dream of his own, and he cannot read it. He is anxious, alarmed, and has to approach one of the figures standing there and ask what it means. What he saw: 4 winds stirring up a great sea, and 4 great beasts coming up out of it, each one different from the others. The first was like a lion with eagle's wings. Then the wings were plucked off, and it was lifted up to stand like a man and given a man's mind. The second was like a bear, raised up on one side, with 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth, and a voice telling it, "Arise, devour much flesh." The third was like a leopard, with a bird's wings on its back and heads to match, 4 of each, and dominion was given to it. The fourth is compared to no animal at all, dreadful, terrible, exceedingly strong, with great iron teeth, devouring and breaking and stamping down whatever was left. It had 10 horns, and a little horn came up among them, uprooting 3, with eyes like a man's eyes and a mouth speaking great things. Then thrones are set. The Ancient of Days takes his seat, clothing white as snow, hair like pure wool, a throne of flame on burning wheels. A river of fire flows out before him. The court sits, the books are opened, and one like a son of man comes with the clouds of heaven. Then centuries of quiet, and the dreams start again, all of them in one gospel, and most of them to one man. Matthew. Joseph of Nazareth has learned his betrothed is pregnant and has decided to divorce her quietly, to spare her. As he considered it, an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream. "Joseph, son of David, do not fear to take Mary as your wife." He wakes and does it. No hesitation recorded, no argument, no request for a sign. He simply does what the dream said. Then the Magi, having found the child, are warned in a dream not to return to Herod and go home by another road. Foreign stargazers from outside the covenant get the same protection everyone else gets. The pattern we found in Genesis is still unbroken here. Then Joseph again. "Rise, take the child and his mother and flee to Egypt, for Herod is about to search for the child, to destroy him." He gets up that same night and goes. After Herod dies, another dream sends him back to the land of Israel. And a last one, when he hears that Archelaus is on his father's throne, warns him away from Judea. He withdraws to Galilee, to a town called Nazareth. 4 dreams. And here is something worth sitting with. Joseph of Nazareth does not speak a single recorded word anywhere in the New Testament. Everything he is ever told, he is told while unconscious. Everything he ever does, he does on waking. And notice that none of his 4 needs interpreting. An angel says a plain sentence. That is the whole taxonomy of biblical dreams. Symbolic dreams, the ones full of cows and sheaves and statues and beasts, always need a reader. Message dreams, where someone simply speaks, never do. And the last dream in the Bible belongs to a woman whose name we are never given. Pilate is on the judgment seat. His wife sends word, "Have nothing to do with that righteous man, for I have suffered much because of him today in a dream." We are never told what she saw, only that it hurt, that it was about him, and that a Roman woman reached the right verdict before the court did. And then the dreams stop. The Greek word Matthew uses occurs 6 times in the New Testament, and all 6 of them are in Matthew. Acts is full of nighttime revelation, but Luke calls it vision every time. Peter quotes Joel at Pentecost. "Your old men shall dream dreams," and then nobody in Acts has one. So, 21 dreams, given more often to outsiders than to the covenant people. Arriving in pairs, because a pair means the matter is settled, always needing a reader when they are pictures, never when they are words. And every reader in the book says the same thing before he says anything else. The meaning is not mine to give. Do not interpretations belong to God? A book full of dreams, quietly insisting that the dreaming was never the point.